the savior for today's episode. And it's like really the divine drama plan. She was supposed to do victory, but she couldn't do. But someone else was supposed to do Asha Didi for hope. But here we have Sister Gayatri. So it's all the cosmic divine plan which we love. All of us love that. In the divine drama, we see all these things happening. And Sister Gayatri is not new for us. We know her very well. But again, for the people who join new all the time, Sister Gayatri has been serving in New York City since she's been living there since 1978, born in Guyana, and practicing Raj Yoga since last 40 years now. And very important, she's since 1980, she's been serving as the representative of the BKs at the United Nations. And you very well know that I have said that in the past as well, that at the UN, she engages in looking at the 5 Ps of the Sustainable Development Goals. And these 5 Ps, just for your knowledge, are peace, people, planet, prosperity, and partnership. She also serves as the vice chair to the International Day of Yoga Committee at the UN. You all know since 2018 or 19, on 21st of June every year, it's celebrated. Thanks to our Prime Minister Narendra Modi ji. And she has written quite a few books. She's also co-authored the book called Something Beyond Greatness. And a number of other publications of hers are The Story of Immortality, A Return to Self-Sovereignty. And as always, today's episode is on hope. So a poem for her and on hope. With Sister Gayatri, every hopeless soul has got indeed some scope, as she inspires, motivates, and infuses the much-needed hope. She advises all of us to look at our weaknesses with a microscope and be away from the digital addiction of bioscope. She teaches us various ways in life of how to cope, which is like listening to the divine sermons of the Pope. Live life freely like a bird, free from the bondage of the rope, not having the fear of falling from the edge of the slope. Weaknesses can sometimes hold us with a tight grope, but the magic of the Supreme's pull acts like a soap, helping us to get rid of them and finally elope, setting us free forever from the Ravan's mighty poke. So thank you so much, Sister Gayatri, for joining. And now I'll request Sister Harpreet, over to you for the official welcoming. Thank you.
Warm welcome, everybody, and special guest is Sister Gayatri. Is what can I say about you? Is I just want to warm welcome. I want to present you with this beautiful, special seasonal plant. I would say is what is the plant actually itself is represents is the purity. The green leaves is the love you share with all of us, your deep heart love, and the red, the powerful soul you are, sister, is giving that for 40 years. And I remember so clearly when we met in personally in Anubhuti and how much experience you have shared and giving us that hope and guidance and sustaining many of us is I always admire your teachings you share with the Avyakti Parivar, and you're a great, great soul and very powerful. Is I feel always so inspired to go more and your simplicity. Other thing that I really admire your simplicity and how powerful you are, how much knowledge you hold. Thank you so much taking the time. What brother Manoj just said is we are just so excited to have you and to listen and learn more from you. Thank you, behalf of each and every one of us, values team, and everybody who joined. And this is something totally representing you. Thank you. Happy holidays, everybody.
Thank you so much. And before I give it to Sister Gayatri, a few housekeeping instructions. As always, you can click on the interpretation icon. Yeah, and I think Sister Gayatri wants to interact more with you all. So you can send in your questions and questions to me directly. And I think we'll be taking questions soon within minutes from now on. So over to you, Sister Gayatri. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much, Manoj, for that poem. And as you were talking about eloping, I was thinking that we choose to elope rather than to be kidnapped. That's a good thing. And thank you so much, Harpreet, for the poinsettia. I think that you chose well because you brought the Christmas spirit into the Zoom room. And as you all know, poinsettias are plants that we get at Christmas time. And after Christmas, somehow they just dry up and we have to get rid of them. So they come to us at Christmas and they leave us in the new year. So thank you so much for that. You brought the spirit very much of Christmas and the holidays and light, joy, peace, goodwill. All those qualities are with us in this room today. Thank you, Manoj Pai, for thinking of me to come and do one of your final episodes in this year. And that value that you have chosen of hope is actually a significant value to be looking at and to be recalling from our memory bank of the soul, to look at its significance in life, in the world, and in our relationships to both our human beings as well as to our planet. And so I've also been invited to talk about this value on your 80th episode of Values in Life, and to share on this value in the spirit of Christmas. Well, you know, 8, the number 8 represents infinity. So I'll start with a quote from one of my favorite people, because I live here in the US. It is Martin Luther King. And he said of hope that we must accept finite disappointments, but never lose infinite hope. So our disappointments we need to see as being finite, but when it comes to hope, it is always infinity we're working with. And so 80th, 8 represents hope, infinity 0 represents the source. Hope, I mean, where does this word hope come from? And of course, the Greeks always claim all words originate from Greek. And so, of course, it originates from Greek, and the word elpo, E-L-P-O, is what it originates from. And it means, its root meaning is something to anticipate with pleasure, something to aspire to, and something to have confidence in. And I thought these were 3 very beautiful root meanings of the word hope. So what I share, taking that into consideration, I'd like to share, I'd like to begin with hope as an expression of our feelings, because I think that's where it begins. Hope is not something you start off with on an intellectual basis, but hope is a feeling that emerges at various times in our lives. And so the feeling being expressed is sometimes where the word hope is used to give meaning to that feeling. And so hope is actually an aspirational feeling that my circumstances can improve, that I can persist regardless of the circumstances, because I know deep within me, there's something telling me that there is at least as much good in the world as there is bad in the world. So hope is that aspirational feeling. Hope is also to choose to be intentional and to be deliberate in fostering positivity in me, even in the face of the absence of positivity. I may be consumed by the darkness of negativity. But hope is I choose to intentionally and deliberately foster positivity. Hope is also found in moments of serenity. And in those moments of serenity, I would reach inside of me and I would touch even a drop of strength. And that drop of strength assures me that there is something inside of me that is coming to my rescue, even under challenging circumstances. And I think that in states of hopelessness, when individuals are driven to something like suicide, this is perhaps what gives them a new leash on life, in which they reach within and somehow that one drop of strength assures them that life is important, that life is sacred. And that occurs, that hope emerges out of moments of serenity. Hope is also something that I used to improve my coping skills, to give me a sense of well-being, and to engage in healthy behaviors. Because sometimes when I can't reach for that drop inside of me, in those moments of serenity, I sometimes have to draw on hope from something that I may be expressing in life. And one of the ways that hope emerges from my expressions is through my behavior. And so that hope gets ignited from a healthy behavior that I may discover in the way I'm living my life. So not all my behaviors would be leading me to hopelessness and destruction, but there may be one little behavior that would be considered a healthy behavior that would help me cope, and that would give me a sense of well-being all over again. And that's hope. Hope in our world is also linked to health issues, to the quality of life, to my self-esteem and my self-confidence, to my sense of purpose. So this is the broader landscape of hope getting expressed in my life. And I think for me, as a person that lives my life through constant spiritual growth, I feel that hope was very, very essential in me developing a sense of maturity and me enhancing my resilience skills. So that for me is hope. It is very all-inclusive in a certain way, but it is very interesting that sometimes I dismiss these various expressions of feelings and expressions of behaviors and expression of a growth that is taking place with me. I dismiss hope from being a part of all of that, but I think that hope is very important when I'm looking at these areas of feelings and expressions. There is a distinction I'd also like to make, and that is hope versus optimism. Sometimes the two get very mixed and very confused. And although hope and optimism are used interchangeably, I think they are distinct. And I'd like to give you an idea of this distinction that I see when I use these two words. Hope is about using my personal agency, my personal efforts, my personal understanding, my personal practice. It is used to achieve a desired outcome. So hope is like propelling me along the way, but I'm very much aware that it's giving me the impetus to do something. It is giving me a reason to do something. It is giving me, it's like a partner in achieving what I want to achieve. Optimism, on the other hand, is to expect good things to happen without necessarily putting in any efforts in it. So I'm optimistic that this would happen, but I'm not engaging my personal agency to make it happen. So I wanted to make this distinction between hope and optimism. Now, when we come on a spiritual path and we are making certain efforts, one of the fundamental efforts we're making is to cultivate characteristics. It is as if we're walking on a road to character, and we're developing the characteristics on this road to mold and shape our divine character. And so in so doing, I think that we encounter a lot of challenges, a lot of obstacles, a lot of things that, illusions, Maya, that would come in the way of us progressing on this path with upholding of our higher purpose as to why we decide to walk this path. And I feel that one of the things that come to our rescue is hope. God has hope in me. My seniors have hope in me. My equals have hope in me. My juniors have hope in me. The planet has hope in me. So this word hope, I think, is very important to develop as a characteristic as we walk on this road to divine character. But one of the things that would help us to develop the characteristic of hope, which is something we're learning on a daily basis, is that one reason for loss of hope is when we think we live a life of mortality, that we're mortals. To develop the characteristic of hope, we have to live our lives as immortal beings. We have to experience death as part of life. And so in the world, there is no greater threat to hope than the awareness of human mortality. For the majority of people, death represents the obliteration of the soul, because people believe that there's only one life to live. And so the notion that in the end, that we are all just biological beings destined to perhaps wither away and to die is not an exact, it's not exactly very uplifting, is it? Nor is it hopeful. And maybe that is why at times of war, the death of the civilians is referred to as collateral, which means that, you know, that's life. You live it and then you leave, and there's no comeback, and there is nothing that could happen with those souls. We just obliterate them. And so I feel that this thought of death is fundamental to losing hope and can leave us feeling hopelessly mortal. We have no choice. Whatever is our fate, that is what is going to happen to us. But this practicing of soul consciousness, which is a primary part of our spiritual growth, is to re-emerge the inherent characteristics that originally and eternally life is immortal. So soul consciousness is a practice to allow us to live in the immortality of life and not in the mortality of the body. And to live in the immortality of life is a process of conquering the fear of death and consequently the hopelessness that is connected with death. And so I would say in this category of living out our immortality in order to develop the characteristic of hope, I have to see hope as an experience. And the experience gives me the assurance that there is life after that. And for those who believe in this, the hope is they look forward to their next birth because they know that depends on the quality of life they live now. And they're taking those characteristics with them in their next birth. So going into the next birth, they don't fear anything because they know the next birth will be determined by what they do now. So that's their hope. And then for those who don't believe in life after death, is that even if they were to practice soul consciousness, they would know it is connected to a longer lifespan. And so the soul consciousness gives them the hope that no matter what they believe in, whether it's life after death or not, but that hope is the longer they live their life on earth, it's the higher the quality of their life will be. And so the hope in this practice of soul consciousness, or the hope that the practice of soul consciousness gives, is fundamental to conquering the fear of death and to live in our immortality. And I think this is a very important aspect to understand about hope. The second characteristic that we need to develop is a reason for hope. We need to have a reason for hope. And a reason for hope is basically participating in a process as we walk this road of character, participating in a process of meaning making. And so if we develop characteristics of hope, then what will happen? We will refer to ourselves as hopeful personalities. And hopeful personalities tend to see and respond to the world in an artful way. Now, you may want to consider for 2024 to talk about this concept of how do we respond, response. Because I think what paralyzes us and makes us hopeless is an ability to respond. And so hopeful personalities would focus on that which will grow their spiritual personalities or their spiritual capacity. And I feel that for people, one of the practices of a reason for hope that would give them reason for hope is a very simple practice that we do as well. And that is to consider the dawn of each day to be a significant time to give me reason for hope. So we call this early morning meditation as Amrit Vela, and it is very, very important to us because it lays the foundation for the day. And so this early morning meditation is actually a time that we find ourselves hopeful and in anticipation for what will happen in the next 24 hours. What do the next 24 hours have in store for me? And if I am hopeful at Amrit Vela that the next 24 hours have got beautiful things in store for me, then very slowly, but very surely, moment by moment, everything will begin to seem meaningful in my life for that day. So this spiritual practice of getting up early and setting myself in the dawn of the old day and the new day as a place that gives me hope, then that gives rise to meaning in life. And that hope at Amrit Vela is like, and I'll use a metaphor here because I really liked Amrit Vela, and it usually, I usually see life like this in the early morning hours. And I see life is like, and I would say the hope in my life is like a lamp burning away the night, which means burning away whatever darkness there may be in the soul, and bringing within the soul a belief that today there is going to be significant meaning in life. And this lamp is where the hope floats, that the darkness of the soul is receding based on the day before, and there's a newness that's coming into the soul. And in this space, hope floats. And so what is the space that hope floats in? It is between the darkness and the light of the soul, between the night and the morning of the dawn. So Amrit Vela is connected to not just the time of the day that I wake up, but it's connected to the light of the day. And it's also connected to the darkness and light in the soul. So throughout the day, these hopeful personalities would make intentional decisions and take actions to move forward in life to bring meaning. And they do that on a daily basis. The other point that I want to raise here for a characteristic is a characteristic of the heart. And the characteristic of the heart is the heart of hope, which means that heart aspires to have a closer connection to God. It's said that God has set eternity in our hearts. And this eternity is called hope. So if I have a true connection with God, I don't wait for God in the hope that I will meet God one day. But the indicator that I'm connected to God is that God, in a consistent way, gives the soul power to abound, to rise in hope. And that hope gives the soul's heart a belief in hope is real because of my connection to God. He's giving me experiences that is abounding hope in my soul. Abounding means I am feeling myself rising in my hope that the things I can't see are the things that God is telling me will happen. So this thing of faith in God and faith in myself is also connected to hope. And so when we entrust our lives to God, then our hope in him is that he will be able to do the things that are abundantly beyond what we could ever hope for or ever imagine. Such as he tells me I'm divine. I never hoped that I could be divine, or I've never imagined I could be divine. But that hope he has instilled in me and tells me that, you know, this is eternal in you. And so he set that jewel of hope in my heart as eternity. So this is where also I feel that when hope is set in my heart as a jewel of eternity, it is then that the heart of this hope is where the godly conscience comes in. And so when we look at our world of darkness and we say, where does the light of hope shine? It actually shines as godly conscience in my heart, because the human conscience no longer works. And so time calls for the rekindling of a conscience that is outside the human logic of what is right and what is wrong. And that is the hope that Baba calls, or God calls, as the eternal jewel I place in your heart, so that you could discern what's right and what's wrong, but from a godly conscience. And then the other characteristics is the characteristic that I call the hand of hope, or the hands of hope, in which we are reaching out to touch possibilities to move forward. And, you know, it is said in the world that a world without hands must be a very dismal place. And so the power of our hands is an extremely beautiful thing to look at, because it possesses a lot of creative things. So the hands can paint masterpieces, the hands can build temples, and it could build pyramids. The hands can comfort and heal. The hands can perform life-giving surgeries or life-saving surgeries. The hands can give gifts at Christmas time, Diwali time, Hanukkah time, all these times of lights, we give gifts, and that's what the hands do. But the hope in my hands are not just limited to those, but the hands can reach out and touch hopeful possibilities in others for them to move forward. And this is why we say that hopeful people extend helpful hands to others, helping them to imagine better futures. Hopeful people extend a finger of cooperation to lift the pain and the sorrow of others. And I'm sure you could also add to this. What is the hope your hands bring to the world? What is the hope your hands bring to others? That handshake, that there will be peace. I will not invade people's privacy. I will not invade another country. So what is this handshake all about? And what's the hope that it gives? This month, the UN is celebrating the 75th anniversary of the Human Rights Declaration. And we, the BKs at the UN, we decided to celebrate it through the hands. And so we created these little clips of the various mudras, showing the movement of hope that is contained in each and every article of the Human Rights Declaration. And so the hands can actually say things in their movements without you even having to bring it into words. And it gives hope because people connect to the body language or the movement of the hand, and they feel what you're about to do, giving them hope long before you have done it. And I'd like to move into an example of what Daddy Janki, with all these characteristics of conquering of death, of a reason to have hope, of the heart being the core of igniting hope, and of the hands being the physical part of the body that actually articulates hope in a very meaningful way. And so she said, actually, if all these four are in alignment, then hope becomes like an oxygen to our consciousness. You know, the consciousness, the soul needs oxygen, and hope serves to give that oxygen to the soul. So then I asked her, I said, what do you mean that the oxygen of hope? What do you mean by that? And she said to me, it means don't think. As simple as that, don't think. So then I said to her, Daddy, if I don't think, then who will think for me? And she said, I will think for you. And I hesitated and I said, well, if you think for me, what if I can't do what you're thinking for me? And she laughed. And today, I said that was one of my greatest errors in life. I should have said, yes, Daddy, you think for me. I'm not going to think anymore. I am sure my life would have been very, very different. But then I asked her, I said, Daddy, if I don't think, then maybe there is something more subtle at work here. And she said, yes. It's something subtle in which you move beyond cognitive and active thinking, but you are allowing things to emerge from the soul, and you will feel what is being emerged from the soul is being inspired by someone higher, by God, and then you would feel yourself as an instrument. So then I thought a bit and I said, well, perhaps this is the art of hope. And Daddy described a process of how she gives hope to people when they come to her. And she says one of the first things that she does is that she should never, ever be caught in the mistakes of others. So she said that we should be able to forget the mistakes of others as if they've never happened. And that's how you give hope to people. And she says, in order to help others maintain hope in themselves, it is very important that there should not be any impression of another person's mistake left in me. Now, characteristics are considered to be impressions that are left on the soul that create a pattern inside of the soul. That's called sanskaras. So she's saying no one's mistake should leave an impression or a sanskara in me, because she says that if that person's mistake is left as an impression on me, then I will see them with a blurred vision of why and what and how and where and who, and that takes away the reason for hope. Hope in myself, that I could have a relationship with this person that's different, and hope in the person becoming different. So then she says that what the impression does when it stays with us and we start having this blurred vision is that I become empty in myself. And it is emptiness in the self that causes me to lose hope. It is an emptiness in my intellect and in my heart that makes me hopeless. And it is a shrinking of my spiritual capacity to do what I know is good for me to do, but not having the ability to do it. This shrinking of my capacity makes me hopeless. And the way I would respond then in this hopeless state is that I would be defensive, I would be cold, I would be fearful in the way I respond. So she says, look, the way to maintain and to cultivate hope is don't think. And what don't think means is to have a connection, to remove all your thoughts of why and how and when and where and who and all of that, and to connect that intellect, connect the mind, connect the heart to God. And when that connection happens, then the heart will know what is right and what is wrong. Because the heart, when my feelings are connected to God, then God allows me to see what a godly conscience is like. And then I'm able to use that in my action. But if I think a lot, then I get caught in the defensive, being fearful, being small, being cold, and that is not hope. So she says that I should never ever think, and now this goes back to hope coming from my healthy behaviors. Healthy behaviors would mean that I should not think according to the way others behave, but rather a hopeful personality will be like an alchemist who always want to change the iron into gold. And she says, when you're able to do that, a deeper aspect of hope is when you could extend yourself through this connection of heart, through this connection of pure feelings to another, not having an impression of their mistakes, not seeing their mistakes, not responding based on their behaviors, then there's a realization that would occur in the other person. And she says that realization is the person wouldn't feel that someone else wants them to change, but the person will feel, I want to change. And the person will then think, yes, this is what is important to me. And I want to do this. And this quality of realization, she says, is where hope rises. And then she gave a very practical example of how she does this. Now, we know that Daddy Janki, who many of you know on this call, was our main daddy for the Western world. And she is the one who would receive emails from all the 108 or 10 countries. And Daddy would sit and read these emails. So one day she said to me, you know, I give a lot of hope to people just by reading these emails, because we ask her, why are you reading so many emails? And she says, no, when I read these emails, I give hope to people. And we ask her, well, how do you do this? And I'm sure I'm sharing this example because we all receive emails from people reaching out to us to help them. And what is the awareness? What are our characteristics that we should emerge in our awareness when we're doing such a simple everyday act? And what Daddy said was that when she reads emails, she does so with her heart. And her heart tells her, and now you remember, there is a heart in the intellect. And that's the heart in the intellect that gives us the reason for hope. And so it's called Preet Buddhi, a loving intellect. So when she uses this word heart, it is not just emotions and feelings coming from nowhere, but it's also that heart in her intellect. So she says when she is giving answers to those emails, she's aware that she's sending hope. She's igniting that light of hope in them. So she reads the emails with the awareness that whatever vibrations I have as I'm reading these emails, as I'm reading their words, those vibrations are reaching them. And in that moment, even without receiving the reply, they are feeling that Daddy is listening to what they are saying to her with an open heart. And so already the ripples of hope is being ignited in them. And then she made this reference that just as Baba listens to us and gives us answers and experiences in the Murlis to sustain hope in us, we should be doing the same for others. Because she says that when they know you have hope in them, they will trust you to always be available to listen to them with love, and never ever to listen to them with questions of why and what and how. She says to have these questions is not listening to give others hope. It's not listening with loving kindness. And she says it is not a listening that people want from us today. She says there is a still, the way we listen, she calls it critical listening, in which we ask all those questions. But what the world needs from us now is compassionate listening. What every soul who sent her an email wanted from Daddy, what they hoped from her, was that she would listen to them compassionately with an open heart, and she would respond to them accordingly. So Daddy was saying that it's important hope. Hope is part of your pure bhavana for another, because she said hope requires me to grow a spiritual capacity, to listen to the complaints of others with compassion. And she says this is what's called seva bhav. I'm serving with the pure intention of allowing people's hearts, their broken hearts, to be healed. And this is what pure bhavana does. And pure bhavana is a form of hope. And so she also gave us a beautiful example, and I don't know if many of you remember her or met her or know her, Daddy Kumarka, Daddy Prakashmani. And it's very funny. We have all these rules and regulations, right? You need to fill out this form, you need to do this, you need to do that, you need to do the other, you need to get permission. But when we arrive in Madhuban, and Daddy Kumarka, Daddy Prakashmani was in the courtyard, and she normally would sit on a chair in the courtyard, and that was her office, basically, meeting everyone in the open. And that's what made her such a unique spiritual leader that grew this organization beyond limits. This was what she did. When you arrive in the courtyard, she would never ask you, why have you come? What do you want from here? Or how come your instrument doesn't know that you're here? She would never ask those questions, but what she would say to you, welcome to Baba's home, your home. Now, this kind of welcome gives a hope. It brings alive a hope that we are all yearning for in the world. And that's the hope of belonging. Daddy gave us that warm feeling of belonging, in which a hope was realized in when Baba tells us, you belong to me, you belong to a family, you belong to the world. And so that hope was then lived. And so I would say, in summing up everything I've said, is when we think of hope, let us function from an awareness of soul consciousness, seeing soul consciousness as a seat of immortality. Do not live in fear. Do not live in mortality. That's hopelessness. Let our reason for hope emerge from the dawn of a new day. Let it be foundational to our Amrit Vela. And let us open the heart. Let us be generous. Let us be compassionate. And let us be honest with our feelings for ourselves and for others. That gives hope. And let our hands reach out with hope in every movement. Let us take those mudras and make them real in the way we move our hands, because our hands do a lot of building of bridges or of breaking them down. And I started with a quote from Martin Luther King, and I'll end with a quote from Alfred Tennyson. And it's to do with moving into 2024. And he says that hope smiles from the threshold of the year to come, whispering, it will be happier. Om Shanti.
Okay, wonderful. So I was just finishing the quote, but I didn't get time to do that. It's okay. So it was wonderful. Like, I think it was an amazing story which you shared of how Dadi Janki infused so much of hope. And this example is fantastic, that even Sister Jayanti always says that we used to tell, or she used to tell Dadi, that why are you answering all these emails? Why are you reading? And you rightly got that point today, that it's also a form of giving sustenance to someone, and reading someone, giving them vibrations of hope. The question which has just emerged in the chat box is, hope the war ends soon. Do you want to elaborate on this?
Hope the war. Which war? There are so many wars. Does he have, or she, a particular war they want to end? Is it a war that's going on in their minds? Is it a war that is happening? But I suppose they are reminding me that there are many, many wars that are happening in the world, and that could very much escalate to what we call the Third World War. And would this end? Do I hope it would end? I believe that there is an ending to everything. Nothing begins that doesn't have an ending. But I feel that my hope goes beyond the physical manifestation of an anger, of an ego, of greed that results in the violence that we called war. And so I would like to see the causes of the war end. So my hope is that humanity will wake up to the realization that war is not the answer. And this is why I used as the first characteristic of hope immortality. If we live in a world in which humanity is saying that when I go to war, I will obliterate, I will eliminate people who caused the war in the first place. And this will be an answer because those people will never return to do the same things that they are doing now, because we have obliterated them. And so there will be peace. War brings peace. And so we will, have peace. So that is not my hope, is for them to recognize and realize that people don't go anywhere. They come back here. And so the perpetration of the violence will continue in the sanskaras of those people coming back. So my hope is the intervention. This is a time of the year in which we talk about the divine intervention of God in the form of Jesus Christ. And so my hope is that the divine intervention of God and the godly conscience that we should be turning to know what is right and wrong, what is true and falsehood, the godly conscience becoming the moral compass for us to live our lives. That's the hope I have. And the hope I also have is that deep in the innermost realms of the human being, of the soul, each one has that ability to recognize that ultimately they don't have the answer and they have to turn to a higher power for the strength to do what is right. So I see it as a process. I know they will have great damages. I've seen the damages. I've experienced them even sometimes when the World Trade Center blew up here, and we were like a war zone here in New York. I've seen it, I've experienced it. And so I know that will continue to happen, but I must put my hope in the right place. I must not have my hope in the wrong place that would lead me to hopelessness. But I must make that conscious and deliberate decision to foster hope in the realm where it will bring a result, not in a realm where it will take me into further darkness. So yes, I do have hope that the war will come to an end when godly conscience is accessed and human conscience is connected to that, and it changes.
Right, wonderful. So there is hope for everything. Good will happen. And you spoke a lot about the early morning meditation, which is being practiced at Brahma Kumaris. So there are two questions related to that. The first one is the brother is saying it's very cold, especially the winters. So how can we consistently get up at early morning? That's one. And second is someone has asked that, can I do my meditation at 5 or 6 a.m. the early morning rather than 4 a.m.? Your thoughts on that?
I'll take the second one first. Early morning is considered to be a time between 2 a.m. and 5 a.m. Scientifically, when people are researching sleep apnea, they say to us that from 10 p.m. to around 1 or 2 a.m., you get your soundest sleep. So when they give us these sleep apnea or sleep monitors to monitor our sleep, I think that's the time they're looking for to see, are you sleeping deeply? And Manoj, maybe you know better than me in this. And then they would see if you're not sleeping at that time, how it is showing up in your blood pressure, in other ailments of the body, and how it's affecting you in that way. Is it your CO2 in your blood that's causing you not to sleep? All sorts of things would then be determined by that. They say after 2 a.m. or so, you move more into a dreamy state, which means the body is already beginning to wake up. And so if that is true, based on scientific research, this is a faith we need to have. And we have been told in our revelations through our founding father that this is the time in which the soul is able to absorb at its maximum, absorb the strength that comes from its connection to God. And it is the time the soul is open to retaining things. And maybe this is why when we're young, our parents say, okay, don't study at night, wake up early in the morning and study, you retain more. And so I feel that having understood that, it is now your choice. Do I wake up at 4 at the time I would have maximum retention? Or do I wake up at 5 or 6 or 7 when my retention level diminishes a bit? And I think that's a choice you need to make based on your understanding. And these are subtle things. I mean, soul conscious and spiritual things are subtle, but they're also connected to the time of the day. So do I want to see the sun rise? I better get up at a certain time. Otherwise, the sun will rise without me even seeing it. So do I want to have that foundation at its maximum, at its optimum? Then I'll make the decision. But the decision is yours. I cannot tell you what time to wake up, but you have to choose it based on understanding. And then what was the other question, the first one? I just want to
especially in winters, it's so cold and difficult to get up. So how do we maintain consistency in the meditation, getting up early?
Well, it has to do with a thought. I think, if I have a determined thought to do something, I will do it. I wouldn't say that because it's cold, I can't get up, or because it's too hot, I cannot get up. And so I feel that if it's too cold and you can't get up and you can't leave the comfort of your comforter, then this is where you need honesty in your heart. What is preventing me from doing what I know is right for me to do? And I don't think it's the cold. I don't think it's anything to do with the temperature. I think it is to do with one question. What is it I want to do right now that I feel is the best for me? And if my response to that question is, what is best for me is to me to stay in bed under the comfort of my comforter, then I'll do that. I choose to do that. I cannot blame the cold for that choice. I may make it an excuse, but I can't blame the cold. Or if I say that the best thing to do right now is to get up and do some meditation so that I can create a really good foundation for my day, then the cold will say, oh, come on, get out of that comforter, and I will provide an inner comfort for you, an inner warmth for you, an inner kind of beauty for you. So again, I think it is choice, and we can't blame anything for our choices. We have to stand up, take a position, and be proud of that choice. Either way. And I think that is why they say hope builds self-esteem and self-confidence. And so the hope I'll have for myself is based in the choices I make for myself.
Okay, wonderful. Another question is when you were speaking about mistakes and also about Daddy Janki, that when we meet souls, we should not remember our mistake, their mistakes. So the question is that should we just have a blind eye for someone's mistakes? How can we empower souls, like, and how sort of how can we make them realize their mistakes? When will they have self-realization for their mistakes? Can we do the job for them, that self-realization thing?
You know, I was speaking to a couple of parents the other night, and it was a similar question. How do I help my child spiritually so that she doesn't make mistakes? Is there anyone living alive who hasn't made a mistake? Well, one of the things about making mistakes is that they will happen. So I said to the parents, your daughter is growing. Your daughter is flourishing in her own right. Your daughter has a part that she has brought with her. She's got a blueprint of what she's about to play out. You can't control her to the extent in which you want her to grow without making mistakes. But the question here that Daddy Janki is saying to us, I know that mistakes will be made because I make mistakes myself. But mistakes, she says, are opportunities to learn. Mistakes are very important in the learning curve of becoming better. So if a mistake is made, Daddy Janki is saying, do I have the generosity of heart? Do I have the spiritual capacity and compassion to listen to the mistakes without judging? Without asking why and what and how and who? Can I listen to those mistakes and send vibrations to them that, look, mistakes are absolutely blind spots in your life. You just didn't see what was in the blind spot because you didn't check it before. So she takes them through this process of meaning making, that a mistake was made, fine, but what meaning did it give to you? And what did you not see? And what are you seeing now? And I'm giving you the power through the vibrations, through my love, through my acceptance of you, to do what you know is right. And, you know, in order to focus my concentration, I started practicing a little bit of archery. And archery means you have to look at that point and you have to, to let that, the arrow, whatever, go to that point. So you're looking at it. And of course, these were rubber. They've got these rubbers at the end of it. And you have to let it hit the target on that board. And if you don't, it's a mistake. And that mistake is called a sin. That's what it's called, a sin, if you don't get the middle of it. And then if you understand what is happening here, is that if Daddy Janki didn't take us through that process of realization through meaning making, and she then used other methods to condemn us, to shame us, because normally what we do with mistakes, we use them to shame the other person. And if I use a person's mistake to shame them, it leaves an impression on me, and they will never trust me. So what she's saying, first of all, is somebody else's mistake. Leave it with them. It's not yours. So you don't inculcate it thinking that you could take the authority to correct them. But leave it with them and keep seeing the good in the soul, keep seeing the beauty of spirituality in the soul, leave the mistake to Baba, but help them through that process of realization without judging, without shaming, without condemning. And that I think we have to be careful of, because the moment I judge another person based on the mistake they've made, an impression is left on me of that mistake. And I become ineffective to help that person, because whatever I'm carrying, the mistake I'm carrying inside of me of the other person is also carrying the same thing, and maybe is aware that this is how I'm seeing them. And they will begin to see me through my mistakes as well, because I wouldn't be exempted from mistakes. I'm a growing effort maker. So I will make those mistakes. And do I want to be condemned and shamed for them? That's not the path we're following. You know, we're following a path in allowing people to have realizations in a loving, compassionate way.
Right. Something on the similar lines, the question is, if someone belittles you or puts you down, how to handle the situation in the best way, using hope as a base?
The way I use hope as a base of what others think of me and what others say of me, and what others speak in terms of how they describe me, is that I use this spiritual principle in my life that can I be someone who can hear something about myself and be objective about it? In other words, can I be detached from what other people think of me while giving them permission to express what they think of me? In other words, I can't stop you from your opinion of me, but I could stop myself from responding to it in the way you want me to respond to it. Because I feel that when someone, the way someone thinks about you, the way someone speaks about you, the way someone feels about you, their target is to make you feel that about yourself. So the first thing I do is I decide to be a detached observer, but not interfering in their opinions of me. They're entitled to that. But I am entitled, my entitlement is not to make me feel I am that, because I'm not. So this is what I call detachment. And then I check for this. Where is my ego? Am I arrogant in which I want to defend myself based on what they're saying about me? If I defend myself because of my ego, it means I'm dignifying what they're saying by accepting it at some level. And I don't do that. The other is I definitely don't want to be insulted by what they're saying. I don't want what they're saying to take away my dignity, to take away my self-worth, and to make me feel what they're saying is true about me. So I do this inner work. But the other thing that I do, which I think is crucial, is I take it into my meditation and reflection, and I say, what did I do to make them feel this? What did I do to stimulate something inside of them? And I check that. And if what emerges for me, yes, it was the tone of your voice, or yes, it was your choice of words, or yes, you deliberately did something, I then allow myself to take power in my meditation and then to look for the best opportunity to apologize. And I feel that once that apology is made, I become free. I don't think about it. I don't feel it. It's settled. And if there was nothing that emerged for me that I feel that made them create that opinion of me, then I just leave it alone. I let it go and I walk away from it. And the thing is here, I take on Daddy Janki's subtle effort very seriously, is that don't let that impression stay with you, because if you let that impression stay with you, you compromise on yourself. And it's hard work. It is consistent work. It is a work to uphold your own dignity and your own worth, which is in your hands and nobody else's hands. But it requires careful attention, and it requires a consistency in how you see yourself, because how you see yourself is how others will see you, ultimately.
Right. So thank you. Beautiful answers. I'll take a few quotes. Our time is actually running up. I'll just take one or two more questions. There are two beautiful quotes you mentioned about Martin Luther, and there are a few others by many others actually. I am prepared for the worst, but hope for the best. And
Beautiful.
every cloud has a silver lining. And even also Martin Luther said, when it is dark enough, can you see the stars? So like, as you rightly said about hope and optimism, you covered it quite at length. So do you want to elaborate on every cloud has a silver lining?
Oh, that is such an old saying. Every cloud has a silver lining, and it literally means exactly what we are facing when we are on a spiritual path. That usually on a spiritual path, you walk through the dark tunnel expecting to see the light at the end of the tunnel. We are walking through the dark clouds of the soul, but we're not looking for the light at the end of the tunnel. We're actually walking through knowing that every cloud we encounter, there's a silver lining, and the silver lining is my soul, strapped right here as a searchlight on my forehead. So I'm walking through the darkness with the silver lining in every cloud. And that is my soul conscious eye.
Wonderful. And I'll take the last question. It's very interesting. The soul is saying, I have started my spiritual journey with the Brahma Kumaris just a few weeks ago. A lot of obstacles coming from home. I hope people change their attitude at home towards me. What can I do? Or just wait and watch, hope for things to get better?
Yes, and I hope she changes her attitude, or he changes his attitude towards what is happening in terms of the challenges. So I would say to you one thing, that challenges are like obstacles, and you are an athlete, and you, the athlete, you're being trained for excellence in performance. And what an athlete needs to do is to go through the obstacle course in order to gain strength, capacity, resilience. So every obstacle encountered, treat it as an obstacle course to gain strength and to gain resilience and to gain capacity, just like an athlete would do in order to have the best of performance. And I would say, go into the realms of your soul consciousness, touch on the strength that you have within. Don't think of a response. Don't speak anything, but go into the sacred silence of your soul. Touch that strength that is there. And from that strength, create an awareness. And from your awareness, create your attitude. And from your attitude, create your vision of your people around you. And only then think, and only then act. Because this is the training that the Brahma Kumaris are giving us. Do not react, respond. How do I respond? Don't think of the response. Let it emerge from the strength that you have in your soul. This is the practice.
Okay, I know my time is up, but a very quick one. Hope I come in the golden age. This mention. Someone's asking, can I come in the golden age with your hope?
Yeah, well, you know what you have to do. I told you before that you have optimism, right? You're very optimistic. I want to come in the golden age. Well, that's optimism. But hope, if you hope to come in the golden age, it's about using your personal agency to achieve that desired outcome. That is hope. So what is your personal agency? What is your personal purpose and meaning in life to reach to that golden age? That is hope. Otherwise, you're living in optimism, and that too is fine.
Okay, on that note, I'll just request, our seniors are not around with us today for some reasons, so I'll request Sister Anu to propose the vote of thanks. Over to you, Sister Anu.
And no meditation?
Yeah, after the vote of thanks
After the vote of
announcements.
thanks.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry.
Oh, no, it's okay.
I will just quickly go through also the announcements. Just wonderful, so much wealth and insight. My goodness, there's so many shades of hope. I don't think we ever thought. So I'll definitely invite everyone to re-listen really in that silent space, and we'll get so many joys today. I loved it how you started with the light of hope within us. That is eternal. God placed it. Eternal light. I loved it. And that eternity gives that understanding of continuity, that gives the inspiration to do the right work now. And then you don't expect the result. You don't even think about it because there's the inner knowing it will bring the right result. And that is where when my light of hope is lit, then the hands of hope comes and, oh my God, I can do wonders with just physicality, that tangible work that can be spread to others. Also, you touched upon the vibrations, and powerful. That was really powerful, that when I hold others' mistakes in my heart or memory or thoughts, then the blurred vision extinguishes my light of hope. I become hopeless. I want to churn on that really a lot more. So having that pure vision, leaving the mistakes of others to God, as you said, that's not my department. So having just pure love and feelings and seeing the light in others. Wonderful. I'm sure everybody is appreciating a lot today. So we'll end with your meditation. Before that, I'll just take another minute quickly to announce the upcoming programs, as we always do. Our after a week, we'll have the workshop on hope. So we'll continue churning on hope. The first hour will be the experiential exercises, and second hour will have Sister Elizabeth from Anubhuti Retreat Center, USA, again, to take us through further insightful understanding on hope. So it is 30th of December, Saturday, morning 6:15 West Coast timing, so morning. Please note and please join us. And our next session and the first session of 2024 is episode 81 on stability in Hindi Sthirata. And for that, we have Jayanti Didi from UK. She's our additional chief administrative head and European director of Brahma Kumaris. So it is on 6th of January, Saturday, same time after 2 weeks, 6:45 a.m. And check us out on our websites. That's vyasa.in and vancouver.brahmakumaris.ca. All our episodes, including today's, will be on our YouTube channels. And yeah, thank you so much. We'll see you in the next. And thank you so much, Gayatri sister. And before we go to the meditation, we want to take a photo. So the virtual photo, so everybody can switch on their video and we share. We love to have this memorial with us. So whoever wants to have the video, please switch on your video. I'll take one moment. Thank you everyone. I got it. Thank you so much, Gayatri sister, and over to you, Manoj.
Yeah, so thank you so much, Sister Anu. So we'll go into the meditation mode, and should we play some soft music or just the yoga is okay?
I plan to do a commentary if that's all right.
Commentary. Okay, sure.
It will be short because I know we went way over time. So let us just reflect on hope and keeping the spirit of the season. Let us see hope as the star that shines the brightest at the darkest time of humanity. Visualize the sky being at its darkest so that the stars can shine at its brightest. And the star that is shining at its brightest is hope. Hope gives light when going through a difficult period. Hope floats in courage and resilience at times of darkness and despair. Hope uplifts when one is feeling lost and full of grief. Hope lives in the cracks of being isolated and unsure of life's directions. Hope is the silver lining that carries us through our struggles. Hope engages us and encourages us to move through a process of change. Hope is always near, even when it feels distant. Hope is an option when we have lost faith and we are out of options. Hope is the existing option. Hope never dies. Hope never leaves us. Hope gives us a reason to believe. Hope connects us to a higher purpose, to a godly conscience. Hope reminds us of our hidden strengths and of our enduring nature of perseverance. Hope floats in the space between the darkness and the light. God has set eternity in our hearts. This eternity is called hope. Om Shanti.
So thank you so much once again for your efforts on hope. Hope to see you soon again. Thank you.
It's really wonderful. Thank you. Thank you, Gayatri, and thank you, everyone. Happy holiday.
Merry Christmas, happy holidays, and may 2024 be a leap of faith. It's a leap year, right? So may there be a leap of faith, hope, and joy.
Thank you.